Class is in session. Your Ohio State Buckeyes might be off this week, but the Buckeye podcast is still in school mode, and it's time to grade the positions on the Ohio State offense and see how they have done through the first half of the season. We got quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight end, and offensive linemen. They've all been good, but how good have they been this year? We'll discuss that today on Locked on Buckeyes.
You are Locked on Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked on Buckeyes, part of Locked on Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Wednesday, October 12th in the year 2022, and I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked on College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. We are in session. School is still going. The Buckeyes semester is not over, which means that at the halfway point in the season, it's time to hand out the midterm grades. Did it last year in 2020, my first time covering the Buckeyes. There was no off week. Well, there were, but some schools like Michigan wanted to cancel the game. We all remember what happened that year. And so this year, doing what we started last year, halfway point to bye week. After 6 weeks bye week, we grade the performance of the Buckeyes through the first half of the season. Yes, I took a shot at the Wolverines. I don't care. The Buckeyes still have plans to beat them, annihilate them Thanksgiving weekend. That's not going to change. Here with me is one of the bigger Ohio State fans that I know, also someone who is laughing at the shots I'm taking at the Wolverines. He understands them and appreciates them. It's my guy, our guy, Jeff Hunt from the Jeff Nee Sports Podcast and the Off the Ball Network. Jeff, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to do this second year in a row. I was so excited. This is one of my funnest things. You know, I do it on my show. I give grade cards every week, so this is a pleasure. And I just want to shout out that I appreciate that you're a Buckeye fan, you're a Buckeye podcaster, and you're not scared to talk about the team up north. I get so tired of everybody like, oh, we want to ignore it. I don't want to ignore it at all. We'll take it head on. You know what I mean? Like, it's coming.
It is coming. What also is coming is these grades, and myself and Mo Murphy yesterday went a little further in depth than I had planned on doing, talking about C.J. Stroud, Travion Henderson. The transfer portal came up. We described how Michael is a dog. I'm still amazed, bro. I'm still amazed. 7 plays, 2.5 sacks. Jeff Hunt, that's not normal.
No. So there was two things. First of all, y'all got out of pocket on that podcast. I always have to follow up Mo because he comes with such energy. But he also comes with the facts. He comes with the know-how and all that. And then I got to follow it up and try to bring up. I'm the Kyle McCord. Like I'm really good at what I do, but I got to follow like you and Mo. You know, after yesterday, but it was cool. You guys touched on a lot of great stuff with CJ, and I had to erase a lot of my notes because I was like, well, don't need to talk about that tonight. Don't need to talk about that tonight because you guys nailed it. It was a very good episode, and as a listener and as a friend, you know, it was cool. But so it saved me a lot of time. We could skip the tight ends.
No. Let's not jump that far yet. It'd be nice to just go ahead and do that, but the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and offensive linemen, those are the categories, position groups for Ohio State. Jeff, I'm going to actually tell you something about Thursday's show, which is kind of a little difference. Later in the week, Jeff and I, probably Friday, will be going over and grading the defense. I'm changing what I told you originally, Jeff. On Thursday, later in the week, we're going to be grading the defensive linemen, linebackers, the corners, and safety separate. I was planning on doing DBs together, but it will be corners and safety separate, and you'll understand why when we get to later exactly in the show. So, quarterbacks first up. Jeff, you are the guest. When we do our grades, one thing, Mitch Rossi is a tight end, not a fullback or an H-back for our grading today. He does play both positions, but he is a tight end right now for this conversation. And also, this is grading every player that's played. So TC Coffey, a walk-on running back, is in the conversation for the running backs. Xavier Johnson in the conversation for the wide receivers. The backup offensive linemen, they are in this grade as well. So it's not just the starters. It's everybody that has played in that group. We have seen 3 quarterbacks play to date right now in the season: Stroud, McCord, and the true freshman Devin Brown. What is your grade for those 3 players through the first 6 games of the season?
This one was pretty easy. I couldn't be too critical, regardless of how little they've let the backup quarterbacks do. CJ's having one of the – I mean, Jay, I went and I looked, and here's what I told you. I graded like an A+ would be like what Joe Burrow did in 2019. So that was my basis of like, that's the best I've ever seen a college quarterback play. I still gave him an A- overall. I went back and looked, and what CJ's doing, it matches up with what Burrow did in 19. It matches up with Mac Jones did in 2020. I don't want to hold too much against McCord and Brown because Day's just not letting them or asking them to do a lot. But the fact of the matter is, like, what CJ's doing as far as what he's with his arm is just it's historic. I mean, it feels like every pass is completion. My only knocks were sometimes I think he seems passive, but maybe I'm grading him hard on body language and attitude because the young man has done nothing, done absolutely nothing, to make me think that he's not going to be there when the Buckeyes need him most. He's not super physical quarterback. I've talked about it on my show over and over and over. Again, I went and looked at the stats. Joe Burrow through, the first 6 games of 19, 46 rushing yards. Mac Jones, I believe, was somewhere around like 20 or 30. So I'm like, oh, wait a minute, maybe it doesn't matter. So it really got me thinking. He's done a great job reading coverages, and that's been my number one thing is like, goes up the line of scrimmage. It feels like, and I know that the opponents haven't been great, but it feels like he's really exposed, defensive lapses. And that's what I like to see, that he's seeing it, he's reading it. He's not the one knock on what I thought was the greatest, Buckeye quarterback of all time, Justin Fields, was that he waited until the players were open. CJ seems to be seeing it ahead of time. Even with the pick 6 last week, it felt like he actually, just because he read it wrong, he was still, that means he was reading the defense, not waiting for it to get open. And the backups just haven't been used a lot. So that explains the A-. But man, I don't want to discredit what CJ's done right now. It's been darn near a perfect season.
Jeff goes A-. Jay goes with an A. And I was going to tell you, Jeff, I'm normally, me, we're pretty even with how hard we are at grading these players and the Buckeyes in general because the standard is so high. My first thought was A-. The pick 6 was in mine because it's recent. Some of the overthrows have been bad. Some of the issues, and I'm not even going to knock him for not running the ball. I think I've just come to the conclusion that he is more of a quarterback that can move behind the line of scrimmage, that does not want to get into the dirty impossibility of getting hit on the other side of the line of scrimmage. But he is making passes, and he is doing things that we don't see college guys do. You heard me yesterday say this is stuff he's doing a lot of NFL guys can't do. And so that's why I was originally going to be an A-, but I had to really put it into account and realize my preseason prediction of Stroud winning the Heisman is probably going to happen unless he gets injured. I don't see him having a drop-off or a fall-off. I really think against Penn State, if you want to have a Heisman moment and it's going to be the second half of the season, that Penn State game can be it, or even like the Michigan game last week of the regular season. Those 2 weeks are going to be huge. But his ability to read a defense in a way that Justin Fields never did, be able to be on a connection with receivers the instant they're on the field, Xavier Johnson and other guys, G. Scott Jr., guys that he's done stuff with in practice, but game reps are different. I'm giving him credit, man. And even when the backups are coming in, Kyle McCord, Devin Brown, they're just doing what they're being asked to do. So I cannot say like they're doing anything wrong. If Day says hand the ball off, they're handing the ball off. If Day says throw the ball to your right, they're throwing the ball to their right. So I cannot discredit anything they're doing. But Jeff, an A. You gave an A-, mainly for Stroud. I gave an A because I think the whole unit has been solid. The IFC, no issues with that. Jeff Hunt, quarterbacks are down. Your turn for the running backs.
Running backs. This is going to come off strong, but this is what I came up with. I gave up B-, and I know that's a big deal, and it's nothing they've done wrong. Here's what we have: we have 2 good backs, and that's awesome. But I give a ton of credit to the O-line, which we'll talk about later, and less than I do the backs. The backs are doing what the backs are seeing the hole. They're getting in there. Mayan Williams has been an awesome, I won't say surprise, but like he's been better than we thought. I think Henderson, I don't think Henderson's who we thought, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad running back. I think they're both good running backs, and I think they're a good platoon. What the knock I would say, if you watch other, some of the other really great running backs around the country, we'll just say if you watch Bijan Robinson last Saturday, our running backs don't frighten the defense as much as like our wide receivers do. Like they, I say that, and I get it, everybody. They're averaging 6 or 7 yards a carry, whatever it is. They're really, really good. Now, the positive is they can grind out yardage. That game-winning drive I called against Notre Dame was awesome. But again, I give a lot of it to the O-line, which, you got to be in tandem there. There's nothing wrong with that. They haven't really been a part of the receiving core. They don't need to be, but I can't give them credit for I think they could be. They really haven't been a part of the passing game whatsoever. So they've done a good job. We wouldn't be in this spot without them, but also the other team is not scared every time either one of them gets the ball, even though they can both go to the house, which Mayan Williams out of nowhere proved that against Wisconsin. One of the better, Buckeye games of all time. But I just went with B- because of they're good. And, they're probably only participating in about 60% of the offense.
You go B-. I'm going A-. Because I think the backups have lifted up the grade between the 2 starters. Trevion Henderson is a limited running back right now. His lack of durability, him not being a durable running back, you can only give him the ball so many times. We saw when he is a featured back last week against, who did they play? I forget Michigan State. That game was so bad, I forgot about it.
Michigan State forgot about it too. They forgot to even show up.
The last week against Michigan State, the game was out of reach. But when Henderson's a featured back, he's getting banged up like he is when he's in a 2-back system. And so I have to give a little bit of knock to the durability of a guy who many people thought, I saw people on Twitter say, he's a future first-round NFL running back. I have not seen that of late. I don't even know if he's right now a day 2 running back in the draft. Probably more round 6, 7, like maybe 5, maybe out of potential. But NFL, they want you guys. They don't want you to be hurt in year 1. They try to pick up the pieces. So, I'm not a draft guy. I'm not going to say that's my definitive answer. Ryan Roberts is a guy for that. But I truly I got to go A- because the one time we saw, the couple times we have seen Dallin Hayden on the field, or T.C. Caffey of Rock on running back, or Caden Saunders, these guys are coming in and doing their job. And they're getting yards. They were getting 5, 6, sometimes 7 yards a pop. I cannot complain when the backups are coming in and doing that. When I realize Ohio State does have 2 starting running backs, neither one is special right now from what I have seen on the football field. So Jeff goes B-. That was really I thought Jeff was going to go.
Yeah, no, I just want to push back. I just want to say about the running backs real quick. I'm not dogging on them. They're doing a great job, but the hype of everybody assumes that both these running. I heard Mo's a little higher on the running backs than I am, but everybody assuming that either one of these guys can just walk on to another national title contender and start. I'm not saying they couldn't, but I don't know if it's as obvious as people say. I'm glad to have them, and I also said on my show we need both of them.
Think about this: Georgia, Ohio State. I don't think either. I don't know. I know that I started over Jahmyr Gibbs. USC, Oklahoma. Well, Oklahoma's down. Texas, Michigan. Are either of these guys better than the running back at Illinois, who I forget his name right now? Was it not Chase Brown? Is that his name? Not Chase.
I know who you're talking about.
Saying, but you see what I'm saying?
I see. If you don't know immediately, yeah, and again, it's not Yeah. And I think both of them together with the offensive line is fine. They're going to be great. And I think they're both going to have big moments of the year, and they already have, and they've done a great job. But I don't know. No team's game playing against them.
No. You're game planning against the offensive line, which is what we'll get to later.
I'm really shocked that we agreed on that. I thought that would be the one where you would throw me off the show. I was really nervous about that.
No, Jeff. I love Mayan Williams. Not as high.
I like them both.
Yeah, but I do agree. There's a reason why Ohio State wants to use two backs and not use one consistently. And we all see when needed, Trey Sermon can be featured. J.K. Dobbins can be featured. Mayan Williams can be featured, but can it happen consistently? That's TBD, to be determined. I don't know. Jeff, moving forward, the wide receivers, the one position everybody loves. Harrison Jr. is doing things that his dad did amazing things, but his dad was not 6'3", 6'4", 210. So, there's a height and weight difference. His dad was explosive in his own way. Marvin Harrison Jr. is catching balls at his ankles, and they can seem like it's just regular clockwork. Walk-on wide receiver Xavier Johnson came on, had caught a touchdown pass against Notre Dame. Saw him last week in the backfield. Jeff and I had a pre-show conversation about what that might mean going forward in the future. No inside knowledge, no inside, just us using our heads to analyze the football that we see. And Igbuka's phenomenal. Julian Fleming might be my favorite player in this group so far, and I love Marvin Harrison Jr., but the story behind Julian Fleming and where he is right now in his Buckeye career is special. Jeff, what is your grade for the receivers?
I gave him a solid A. The only reason I didn't give him an A+ is because I assume that maybe at the end of the year I could. Like, if I give him an A+, then that has to be the standard forever. So I just gave him a solid A. They've done nothing wrong. They're fast. They're physical. My favorite thing that they do is the way they're reading the coverage. Like, all these guys know where to run. They know how deep to get their routes. I complained about that, for years, for my limited time as playing wide receiver in high school and stuff. Like, I complained about the route tree and the depths and things like that for a few years with Ohio State. I'm like, why are we so boring? Like, why are we doing Heartline comes along? All of a sudden, these guys know exactly how deep to get behind the safety or linebacker in front of the safety, things like that. It's amazing. The hand placement, the back shoulder catches, they just have done everything. They block. I mean, that's a Ohio State thing. Like, Ohio State, you can go back 20 years. Their wide receivers block. If you can't block a wide receiver for Ohio State, you're in trouble. It's really amazing. Like, what I love about it is Stroud standing there. Whoever's out to his right or left is standing there. Neither one of them have to make any motion. And then the next play is a touchdown because they both read the coverage. They didn't have to talk about it. They didn't have to make a lot of motions. They didn't have to give it away. And it's a touchdown. It reminds the only thing close is Tom Brady and the Patriots as far as being on the same page, which is it's all coaching, but it's all learning. It's all these guys training. It's film. It's practice. It's all showing up. And Harrison's just amazing. I think he's, as to now, if you give me one game, I don't know if he's the best wide receiver I've ever seen in Ohio State, but he's got every tool in the toolbox. It's amazing. He is just an absolute, he's got a little Chris Carter in him as far as physical, but he's got a little speed in him. I don't know what you do with this guy. I love him more each week, but everybody, Igbuka's great. He's just he's got the whole toolbox himself. So I had to come up with a nitpick. The only nitpick I could think for the whole group, and this is tiny, is they don't have maybe one guy that is so fast that nobody can catch him like some teams have. It doesn't matter. Devontae Smith, for instance, that's just a guy that is, I mean, and it's such a nitpick. I'm not saying we need him or whatever. I just had to come up with something that they might be missing. But that's it. I mean, outside of Calvin Johnson, they don't have Calvin Johnson. They don't have Devontae Smith. They've literally got every receiver in between, and they're on the field at the same time. They seem to really care for each other, support each other. There is any quarterback in the country would love to have this crew.
This is one of the weirdest things I'm going to do on the podcast today. I told Jeff beforehand I have no A+. If there was a unit that could get an A+, it is this unit. And I don't give A pluses out because I feel like you have to be perfect and we can pick and nitpick and holes. And we literally just saw a miscommunication between the quarterback and receiver. I want to say that was on Stroud because like Buka was going to walk to the end zone.
Yeah, I think it's Stroud.
I know on the TV, I think they landed on the receiver. I know Herbstreit's a quarterback, so I don't know if that was him doing that or not. But I'm like,
let me tell you,
buddy, it's wide open. Like I don't know what you're talking about. There's 15 yards to the safety on the inside. There's 15 yards to the corner that's underneath them. That's clearly the corner saw. Stroud misread that pick there.
Yep. It was on Stroud, or the corner would have followed the wide receiver. If it wasn't on Stroud, Stroud would have thrown it into the dirt, and there would have been nobody there. That's why. And let me tell you, Herbstreit was a feasible option quarterback, but for you to call him a quarterback, that's very kind of you. I'm sure that he would be like, man, thanks, Jay.
I have heard Herbstreit in interviews. Sorry, guys, I get the receivers an A. Enough said. Jeff said it so well. I'm not going to not going to go away from that. But I've heard Herbstreit in numerous interviews, and he's one of my favorite guys to listen to an interview. There's like a dream college football interview that I want in my life. It's Herbstreit. Yeah, I know he was not an amazing quarterback, but I see a lot of the ways that like we view football the same. He's been doing this at that platform, at that level for 25 plus years. Yeah. Phenomenal. I mean, imagine what it's like to call a game on a Thursday night in the NFL, and then be able to do a college game day show for 3 hours live, and then possibly fly to another venue to call a night game on AB. It's not easy, man. It's not easy at all.
And he's always on primetime. Like his games aren't at noon, on the I want to say Big Ten network for lack of a better term. Yeah. He's always like the most eyeballs are on him, and he has to entertain the audience for the longest time. Me and him have our differences, but I also his professionalism and what he's achieved is, above and beyond.
But when Herbstreit says he was an option quarterback coming out of high school, and I've seen Herbstreit literally just on the sidelines in just pads, and I'm like, buddy, you were not an option quarterback. But maybe like that's your offense in high school. I get that, but like,
yeah, it was a different time, Jay. It was a different time. I think
option quarterback. I think more Charlie Ward in the 90s, not Kirk Herbstreit.
Brett Favre was an option quarterback in high school.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. There's a I don't know if anybody wants to check out Trent Dilfer's podcast, his conversation with Brett Favre, you would be amazed at how the difference between where he started and where he ended up.
Dilfer's podcast is amazing. I love listening to those stories.
Check out the Brett Favre episode is pretty fascinating.
Got it. Let's keep moving because Jeff and I can do this for a very long time. Tight ends. This group to me, man, and I have my own thing that I could say about the Ruckert and Stover differences and why Stover's being utilized in a different way. But you got Stover, you got Mitch Rossi, you got G. Scott Jr., who's been out there. Joe Royer, who was the guy I thought was going to play some. I think he's been hurt some this year, so I can't really utilize him. Those are the three main guys that have been on the field at tight end for Ohio State. I got my own grade for them, and I'm going to lift it a little bit because of what Stover has done and his nastiness in the run blocking game. Jeff, what's your grade for the tight end at Ohio State?
So I went with a B-. I mean, Stover, what Stover's done and learned, and the player he's become is awesome. He's going to be super, super mega important for the rest of the season. Like Stover's story, is the first chapters barely wrote on how important he's going to be the rest of the season. That's awesome. The depth is what it is. I mean, we're including Rossi now. Rossi's done a great job. It's just one of these offenses it's just not at this point, they don't feature the tight end or they don't rely on it or lean on it quite enough. I gave a slight knock because I don't think any of our tight ends are huge like red zone / like say inside the 5-yard line. I don't think any of them are like, oh my gosh, like how do we cover this guy? Like they're not we'll say a Travis Kelce or an Antonio Gates or something like that. Not that they can't score, but the other team's not game planning against them like they would a Harrison or, Egbuka or something like that. But they are a bigger part of the offense this year, which I really like. I love what I've seen out of them. They're just not used as much. I mean, their total, like as far as listed tight end receptions, I looked 19 receptions and 2 touchdowns. That's the tight end.
Only 2?
Yeah.
Dude, that seems low with how much they used Stover at the beginning of the year.
I know. Stover has 2 touchdowns. I'm sorry, Scott has 1 too now. So that's my bad. That's my bad.
That still seems low to me.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's wrong. Maybe Stover.
No,
has more
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, that seems, my mind, I didn't look at the numbers. I would have assumed the number was higher.
Thought they were, yeah. And it's fine. It's not that they haven't mattered. They've been a big deal, but I kind of graded them on usage. I think if this offense wanted to, they could have a tight end that has 80 catches and 10 touchdowns. So that's it. But that being said, I just want to say Stover gets an A for everything he's done. But just as far as like the depth and the usage, this offense just hasn't leaned on him yet. But believe me, it's coming. If you ask me at the end of the year, I think this is going to be one of the most important positions on the team.
I got a B+. You go B-, I go B+. Okay. I'm normally this is clear, Jeff's. We're tough graders. My real thing is, why have they not been used more of late? And I don't care if you want to say Mayan Williams went off, or Trevion Henderson had over 100 yards when he was the featured back. I don't really care about all that. Why have they not been now? Why have they not been used more now? Is it Fleming has come on more, or they wanted to get G. Scott Jr. involved later in the third quarter of a game? Great. But why was Stover utilized so much? And he did big things, and he was running seam routes, and he was getting open and finding the hole in the zone. And why have they not been used more? If this was simply, Jeff, a grade on run blocking and pass blocking for the tight ends, I might give them an A.
Yes.
A-, maybe. Because I have seen Stover get ran over by the defensive end, Wyndham. I believe it was Wyndham at Michigan State a week ago. I know Rossi's had some issues in pass blocking. He's like 6'1", 6'2", going up against guys that are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". They have long arms. That's bound to happen. But we're going in the totality. I have no problem giving them a B+. I have no problem with that at all. I firmly think this unit, especially against Iowa and Penn State, and really Northwestern, even though they're bad, no, I think Pat Fitzgerald can light a fire under his team, especially when Northwestern is at home, to have the game of their lives against Ohio State.
Well, Northwestern's gonna play that same cover 4 defense, and Stroud's gonna have to just pick them apart, and the tight ends are gonna be they should run rough shot. That's a great point. And I did look it up. The tight ends have 3 touchdowns. I'm sorry, I didn't count the Scott touchdown. Stover has 2, and Scott has 1.
That's all right. But I'm going B+. I firmly think by the end of the year, my grade might be at A-. I do plan on having Jeff back on to grade the positions at the end of the year. Little teaser there for that. But I do think, though, with the first 6 games, I can't complain. Stover brings a grade up. Not using Rossi in the passing game kind of brings the game down. I would like to see more players involved in the passing game, and I should have graded Stroud a little bit tougher and gave him an A- because he doesn't utilize their running backs at all. Like they usually stay in. A lot of times I see them out there. They're picking up a blitzer because teams have to bring extra pressure because you can't get pressure with the front 4, which leads me to the offensive line. If you can't get pressure with the front 4, Jeff, the O-line is doing something correctly. Where are you at with the offensive line in 2022?
These are my guys, man. I love watching them play. I love them as a unit. I've been complaining about it for years, and not that Jay, we've talked about it a bunch of times. It's not that the individuals were playing bad. Just as a unit, they were either out of place. They were all playing. It always looked like they were playing separately. Like, how many times have we seen, like, this offensive lineman's blocking great, but then the next one's not. So it leaves this huge gap, and a guy comes in, and now, Fields or Stroud or whatever is running out of the pocket. This unit puts up a wall. I love it. I gave him a solid A. I think that's been the most, everybody talks about the defense, and we'll talk about it here, on our next show that we do. But this has been the biggest plus. We forgot, Knowles took all the shine, all the luster of the summer of talking about getting Knowles, and the defense was going to get better and all. Fine. But we brought in an offensive line coach too, and it's amazing. This is a unit, and that's what an offensive line has to be. Has to be 5 to 6 guys on the same page. Their splits are perfect. The gaps, the running backs don't have to look, at the line of scrimmage. They're looking at the next level, and that's the key. They're not stumbling over guys. They don't always have feet in the way. They don't always have a leg in the way. The quarterback, I put on my notes here, Stroud could sit back there and make a sandwich. But to go to power, like run blocking, and then to go to protecting, the best quarterback in the country on 2 plays in a row that's amazing for an offensive line. They've done a great job. Notre Dame was when they really that's when I knew that I call it the game-winning drive, that last touchdown drive against Notre Dame. I'm like, we're fine. That was when I was like, this offensive line's like, now we're good. They could have, if the field was 500 yards long, they would have got a touchdown on that drive, is what I mean by it. So I love this line. I know the individuals better than I do, and you can pick it out. But when I watch them as a unit, it's amazing, and I think it's the most improved part of the team, and I'm including the defense on that.
Jeff, this is the first time the entire show, second time, we've had the same grade. It was the receivers. We both gave them an A. I'm going with the offensive line. We gave them an A as well. I think I could have graded the running backs a little bit harder, gave them a B+, because there are times there are holes, or you have to be patient to wait for the hole to develop. And the running backs, mainly Henderson, sometimes Williams, but mainly Henderson, they don't wait for the hole to develop. That was one of my gripes, and that actually came out in the show Monday and Tuesday.
It sure did.
I tried to describe plays and have a film session on a Monday morning or afternoon for everybody to let you know, what Stroud's doing is amazing. Here's the play. What Henderson's doing is amazing. Here's the play. And have a whole little film breakdown earlier in the week. But this offensive line, the one thing you want as a unit of an offensive line is for you to not know who players are.
Yeah.
Because if you know who a player is, they're probably doing something wrong. I'm going to highlight DeJuan Jones. His high school is 10 minutes from where I live. I was at his high school over the weekend, last Friday, watching a football game. Oh, little side note, Jeff, I know we got to wrap the show up. The game I was at, Bay Davis High School was down 28-0 a play into the third quarter. All of a sudden, they score 29 unanswered points. DeJuan Jones is high school, and by doing that, they will potentially win a share of the conference championship. If they lost that game, they would not have won at all. It was literally one of the most special things I have seen on a football field. My team, my high school, lost that game. But I'm sitting here astonished. My dad's like, how did they do this? And I'm just like, hey, man, boys got tired. Boys don't have no juice. And the Ben Davis Giants, the home of DeJuan Jones, did phenomenal things. But him coming back to school, him staying in school, him cutting, I believe 30, 35 pounds, may have been one of the better decisions he's made at Ohio State, because he is good. The right side where he was good in run blocking.
Yeah.
Dude, that right side between him and Matt Jones, as far as solid run and pass, you can't get past him, buddy. You can't. And the unit is amazing. But when you pick apart individual players as people can do, you realize each person does their job. They communicate with each other. And that combination is why the offense at Ohio State is the best in the country.
Jay, this is the opposite of what we said about him last year. Everybody go back and listen to our show last year. It's the opposite of what Jay Stevens said. Everything he just said that they needed to change, they changed. When I watch Jones now, I'm like, that's the guy that we were, So that's what I'm saying about, it's not only about coaching, it's about learning. Obviously Jones was ready to be that guy. He just needed the info. He needed, he needed the reps, and I think I'll just stand by it again. I'll say it again. The offensive line is the most improved part of this team.
Jeff Hunt, we're out of time. Unfortunately, we don't have more time to talk about more stories from what the high school football we've watched or played, or the players on Ohio State offense that we love. But if you could, Jeff, please let us know where the people that aren't watching on YouTube, where they can follow you on Twitter, and then also where they can catch all the good stuff you're doing with the Jeff Needs Sports Podcast. And if you could, talk about the top 50 list the Off the Ball Network is putting out right now going into the NBA season.
Yeah. I'm Jeff Hunt, VP of the Off the Ball Network. I do Jeff Needs Sports. You can find that anywhere you get your podcast. I'm in my 4th season now. I'm at jhunt006 on Twitter. I love to talk about college football. Love to talk about, NFL. I love to talk about sports in general. Love to talk about movies, whatever you want to talk about. But yeah, the Off the Ball Network, the guys over there have put together a top 50 NBA players, in the league coming out right now. That's been it's crazy. You'd have to see our chat room to see everything we talk about and all that. There's a lot of brilliant guys who are really excited about the kickoff of the NBA season. So, it's a bye week. Take some time, please go over there and click on it and, read it, interact with the guys and talk about it, because here's what I'll promise you, just like me, just like Jay, when we do the rankings, they can justify, defend, and have a reasoning for everyone. I'm not saying they're always right, but they have a reasoning for it. It's not clickbait. We really try over there, and we try to give a good effort for everybody. And again, Jay, thank you, and thank for Locked On Buckeyes for having me on.
And guys, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Send all of your emails to jstevens317@gmail.com. To piggyback off of what Jeff said, I actually had the president of the Off the Ball Network, Chris LeBron, on the Jay Stevens podcast. That'll come out on around 12 noon, 1 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday, on Hump Day, today on October 12th. And he had 4 guys on the Cleveland Cavaliers in his top 50 players going into the NBA season. I can't tell you where each guy is. Check out the episode, and you'll hear why he is high on the Cleveland Cavaliers going into the upcoming NBA season. We're out of here for the day. It's a hump day. Enjoy it. Football's coming up. Actually, no, Jeff, it's football tonight, buddy. Let's just get ready. Midweek college football. NFL's back tomorrow. Hopefully it's better than the fiasco of the Broncos, the Colts last week. Justin Fields is on the TV
Justin
tomorrow.
Fields this week. There you go. Everyone
gets it. We're out of here. I'm done talking. Have a great day, everybody. Oh, Jeff, got to end it the right way once again. OH.
I-O, baby.